Hey everybody, so we are looking at me making another map in Inkarnate. This is Benderbud GM, and today I was making myself an enormous dam, because I felt damned. Actually, I was trying to come up with a cool idea of some sort of water-like dam that could be used to keep lava and fire at bay, so I came up with the concept of a waterfall filling into a water reservoir, which were then pushed out of little tiny water bridges out into an enormous dam-like structure that kept a lava lake at bay. It allows for some cool elemental stuff. It also gave me a lot of opportunities for the place to be sabotaged, as well as different entry points, exit points for that sort of thing. Because, you know, I figured giving my players as many options in terms of choice was clearly the best way to go about it. I had no way to anticipate that they would completely avoid the altercation altogether and instead decide that they'd rather go out and face the enemy on their home turf instead of do the defensive fun encounter that I had planned and done a bunch of writing up for. But, you know, it's how players are. You try to lead them to water for a fun adventure and they decide, nope, they'd like to show the boss who's boss on their home turf. And hey, who am I to stop them? We ended up actually having a fun time with that. Minions, big monologue, shooting up into the sky. It was great. So about the map. As I've used before, the pathing tool is great for just sort of laying out the space that you're working with, because again, I had a paper copy going into this one, so I already had the measurements and the dimensions I was looking for, so hence that tool. Again, I still don't know if this is the best or the fastest way to get this done, but it certainly got me to where I was going. As you can see, I'm starting to put up walls here, and I'm making for a little bit of texture issues. Now remember, the dam is very high up in the air, so you can see that I only put down the masking tool in the areas where people are walking high up. But down below there, it needs to be shaded and done with a little bit of fog almost, just to kind of give the concept that it's so high up. Granted, giving the perception of depth is not my strongest suit so far with Inkarnate, or any of these tools for that matter, but I feel it's important to keep on trying and seeing what does work and what doesn't, because when I show people these maps and I ask them what they don't see, they let me know, and I know that whatever I was doing here worked, so it's good to look it over a couple of different times, maybe show it to somebody else and ask them what they like about the depth, so that you get a more focused answer from them. And what I've learned so far is that sizing and texture size are important. So if you want something, you know, higher up, which is in frame, you don't want anything to look too big, but big enough that it feels like it has a presence. And then when things are much lower down, it's good to have that same object, but smaller, and a few squares away, or a few tiles away, obviously, too. So, for example, you're seeing a lot of staircases and big rocks going up here. If I want to give the perception that the giant, enormous rocks got smaller the lower that you got, then it wouldn't be too big a deal to make some smaller rocks down below in the water reservoir. So, what are we all looking at right here? We've got 2 water stations, which are these brick buildings, which have levers, buttons, faucets, gears, nozzles, and valves to let them know what's up. And you can climb up both of these in order to enter this map, or you can avoid them entirely. But it gives you more space to play around with, is what's important. So whenever you're developing a map, it's good to remember you want different types of spaces. You want large spaces, small spaces, tight corners, a lot of hallways, a single pathway. These sorts of things allow you to drive creativity with the monster types that are being thrown at them. Going back to general tools, now that we have most of the maps finally walled out, we can start to do some texture work. Now, me personally, I know it's not the best workflow, but I definitely like to work on things that I feel most comfortable with and enjoy doing the most, so water is my base layer to everything, essentially. So, right now, I'm just filling in the water reservoir at the base of the waterfall. We have the different colored water to sort of give the sense that things are just a touch different, but either way, it's supposed to look kind of murky, like it's been sitting there for a while, you know? So, want to make it look a little on the gross side. And we add a few sewer grates in here. This is going to be where the water passes through as it's going down to the water wall / dam down below. So, just let that spill in a little bit. when you got textures this close, it's always best if you're able to throw an object on top of that little line between background and foreground with the masking tool. You know, the little line that you see dark gray next to the brown or the green in this map, for example. If you can put objects on top of them, that helps a lot. It's not going to be day or night if it's missing versus not there at all, but personally I like it. What you saw there is, that's supposed to be the top of a waterfall where it spills down, so I felt like making it kind of look rocky, like sand and coursing stones and rushing water had dragged away all the greenery in this area, and all that was left was just muddy water, rocks, and, you know, just general gross stuff. Making a little bit of a pathway here, nothing too hard. I was using the tool that basically just hits every square, and I figured I'd go back around and fix it later on, and sure enough I did. See, I got an entire angle there just by using the square tool, which is a great way to just get corners really fast. Just as long as you remember to resize and reuse it over and over. Keeping a good 45-degree angle is always a great way to move around the map with it. That way you don't have to keep resizing and making sure you get it just the right size. A little bit of detailing. It's really good to make sure you get all of these mesh and brush and masking layers ready to go, because once you've got clean cuts, it makes doing all of the texture work so much easier. So now we've got objects on top of all of the lines that designate these things. We got a little bit of view spot, a clear water outlet, and a rocky path so that it doesn't spill over, at least naturally spilling over or anything like that. A couple of staircases to denote elevation. I didn't do the best job of connoting elevation, this sort of thing, but you know, if you explain it the right way to the players, they'll just read into it, and imagination will carry them more than your own art needs to. So remember, it's not so much that you need to make perfect maps or maps that show up just right or do exactly what you need them to do. It really just comes down to making maps that are usable enough that you can paint a picture and tell a story with them. So as you can see there, like I was talking about with sizes, I made the same rocks as above, but smaller and off to the side. So that's supposed to give the idea that there's a bit of a difference, plus making all the little lily pads nice and small, that sort of thing. It's the best that you can do, especially when you have the same grid size throughout the entire map, because it just gives out this really bad perception that just because you're higher up, the 5x5 grid square is the same down below, where real perception and the way that we see things and the way the world works, like, that would be all kinds of skewed and warped depending on where you're standing and perceiving everything. But hey, let's ignore that and get back to it. So this is supposed to be on the edge of a mountain, so I put a bunch of rocks there to kind of give it a rocky overlay. That contrasting with the water and the waterfall, I felt like it's really natural sort of looking outgrowth. Put a couple of valves next to the bridges where all the water comes out so that it could be a focal point maybe in the battle that's going on, or it just kind of reminds you that, hey, this is a real connected world and people need to do these things like they would do a job any other part of their day, you know what I'm saying? So finished off making those look like sewers, and then water just fills that basin. I didn't feel the need to add too much more beyond that, because I figured at that point people are either putting together that the water flows from one direction to another, or they don't. So these inside areas, there where the steam, sorry, that's where the dam is all kept together and everything worked out real well. And I wanted to make those pipes work as well, so I did my usual get the interior flooring look, and then put a little bit of dirt in the major walkways as people would walk through this space, hence why you're seeing a little bit of brown here and there. And we're gonna I wanted to make a bit of a safe area here so that people could have a trap they have to get through essentially, or a more difficult location to pass by. I also decided to make it 2 layers because remember, we're going to be shading most of this stuff in so that they can't see it until it's too late, essentially. So having the outer locked door, or guarded door at the very least, and then opening up only to reveal this enormous locked gate, means that if players are going too easily, you can put a bigger challenge here, or if players are just barely scraping by, maybe they get lucky and somebody left the gate open, or they're just opening to check on it as you showed up in the room. So it gives you a lot of options, and it makes them feel like they're progressing either way, or at least facing a larger challenge. So remember, smaller challenges to larger challenges, never a bad idea, because you can always fudge the numbers in game as things are happening. Now here there's obviously no T-piping leading from just a straight line downwards or upwards. That would look ridiculous, so I just put a couple of L pipes next to a solid line and it worked. Then we put some piping with a very, very low opacity at the top so that people can sort of see it if they look close, but it's not drawing too much attention. Here's a storage room with a little bit of work to do. So we're just doing some classic interior stuff here. We're kind of making it look like a workstation. Got a couple of supplies stored there, a couple of food snacks maybe. Just general things that people would keep around this area for the work-life balance that people are looking for. Because I always like to imagine that in other worlds, work-life balance is a bit more controlled than the one we're currently living in. But hey, you never know. Maybe 2020 will actually be good. So anyways, a couple of books, a couple pieces of gold. This can connote that there's treasure there, especially since they're going to be able to see that stuff through glass windows. So it lets the players know that if they put the risk in and try to get through, maybe they'll be rewarded with some cool stuff. Or maybe they'll just be screwed and all this stuff was for show or was transmuted into something less valuable. Either way, it's good to put some tables down, a couple of cards, because everybody likes to play cards in this world. A few staircases so that, again, people can either travel up into this area or they can travel to different places from it, because options are always better than no options. A couple of rugs, a couple of doors, and then we get the big water wall done in here. So this is where all the water is pouring from the waterfall out onto an enormous dam which keeps a lava lake at bay on this volcanic fiery island that they live on. And yeah, this is what it ends up looking like. It spills from waterfall to basin to these little spillways and then out, pouring in big washes. It's a big reason why I kept the size larger on the water texture, because I want to give off the concept that it's just gushing and flooding out. But then of course smaller ones with a lower opacity, eventually you're going to fill that in. Throw a couple of tides in there just to kind of give the appearance that there's a lot of movement and make it chaotic, because it's splashing against each other and going all around. You want people to feel like they're going to hit the splash zone as they hit the side. So we throw a couple of mist clouds right there, keep the opacity a little bit on the low side so it looks like it's fuming and frothing in every direction. A couple of pipes just spilling out. Again, just giving off the impression that more water is spilling out than these little things even show off. And boom, now it looks like you've got a big old wall of water. The perspective is not perfect by any means, but again, you only need to be good enough to sell this to your players. Alright, so I'm placing objects onto the background so that there's some overlap. I should have made them on the smaller side. That's a retrospective of me though. And then I add a little bit of shading. I add some darker dirt down there so it doesn't look so much like the area up above. Put some clouds on there, make it look a little misty, like there's a difference. Or at the very least, I can sell the fact that if they fall off the edge or knock a creature off the ledge, it's worth the extra d8s and fall damage, or whatever it is. Either way, we're hitting kind of the end of this right here. I kind of sped this bit up at the end. I made it look a little on the cheap side, but there's some nice little cyberpunk items I threw in there to kind of give the Steam and Valve look a bit. This would be a good combat, spacious room with a bit of cover, places to hide. And that's it. This was not my best map, it was not my worst map. I enjoyed making it, but I was really upset I never got to actually use it in game. So I hope you guys liked watching this, and I hope you guys have a good day, a good night, a good life. Like, subscribe, I need to ask, because that's how our brains work, and peace out. Inkarnate rules. Night.